You think you know Malcolm in the Middle? The chaotic house, the screaming mom, the dad in his underwear, the genius kid breaking the fourth wall. It ran for 7 seasons, won a pile of Emmys, and launched one of the most unlikely career trajectories in Hollywood history. But here's the thing. The story behind the show is so much stranger, so much messier, and honestly so much more interesting than anything that ever happened on screen. Hi, my name is Aaron, and this is Old TV Cinema. Fact 1. The show almost starred a completely different family. The Malcolm in the Middle you watched on Fox starting in the year 2000 almost didn't exist in any recognizable form. The creator was a guy named Linwood Boomer. You probably don't know that name, and honestly, that's part of the story we'll get to later. Boomer had been a working actor and writer in Hollywood for years. You might actually recognize him without knowing it. He played Adam Kendall, Mary's husband, on Little House on the Prairie in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Solid career, respectable work. But he had this idea for a show that had been rattling around in his head for a while. The original concept was darker, more grounded. It wasn't the anarchic, brightly colored, laugh-out-loud chaos that eventually made it to air. Boomer's early pitch was closer to a raw, somewhat painful portrait of lower-middle-class family life. A genius kid trapped in a dysfunctional household where nothing worked and nobody had any money. Think less slapstick, more despair. Which, look, sounds fantastic to me personally. But networks in 1999 were not exactly lining up to put depressing poverty portraits on primetime television. The family dynamics were also different in early drafts. The number of brothers shifted. The tone of the parents was different. Lois, in early versions, was less of a force of nature screaming hurricane and more of a quietly exhausted woman ground down by life. Which honestly also sounds like a great show, but a completely different one. What eventually emerged was a hybrid. Boomer kept the core, the brilliant miserable kid, the chaotic family, the sense that life was happening to these people rather than for them. But he dialed up the comedy, dialed up the physical chaos, and somewhere in that process, Malcolm in the Middle, as we know it, was born. But not before every major network looked at it and said, no, thank you. Fact 2. Bryan Cranston was nobody before this show. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Bryan Cranston, Breaking Bad, Walter White, one of the greatest television performances in the history of the medium. Obviously, he was always going to be a star. No, absolutely not. Sit down. Before Malcolm in the Middle, Bryan Cranston was a journeyman actor with a perfectly respectable and almost completely anonymous career. He'd done guest spots on everything. Seinfeld, The X-Files, Saving Grace. He had a recurring role on Loving, a soap opera, in the 1980s. He was the kind of actor who working directors knew and liked, but whose name meant nothing to a general audience. Nothing. He auditioned for Hal, the dad. And here's the part that should make your jaw drop a little. Fox wasn't sure about him. The network had concerns. He wasn't a big name. He didn't have the profile they typically wanted for a lead in a primetime sitcom. The executives pushed back. They wanted someone with more marquee value, more recognizability, someone audiences already had a relationship with. And Linwood Boomer, to his enormous credit, pushed back harder. He wanted Cranston. He'd seen what Cranston could do in the audition room, and he wasn't letting it go. So, Cranston got the part. And what he did with it was extraordinary. Hal was supposed to be the slightly checked out, well-meaning, but ineffectual dad. In lesser hands, he's a background character, a straight man, a reaction shot. In Cranston's hands, Hal became one of the funniest physical comedians on television. The man was a revelation. Roller skating, speed painting, the racing, the dancing, take after take of pure committed physical insanity. And here's the kicker. Years later, when Vince Gilligan was casting Breaking Bad, he was asked why he chose Cranston for Walter White, a role that required dramatic range, menace, and moral complexity. His answer was simple. He'd seen what Cranston could do on Malcolm in the Middle, specifically what he could do with his eyes. The control, the precision, the ability to switch registers in an instant. We will come back to this connection, because it gets better. Fact 3. The theme song was written in one afternoon. They Might Be Giants wrote the Malcolm in the Middle theme song, Boss of Me, in a single afternoon. That's it. That's almost the whole fact. Except it isn't, because the circumstances around it are genuinely bizarre. The band was approached to write the theme, and by their own account, they cranked it out remarkably fast. Fast even by the standards of people who write jingles and themes for a living. One afternoon of work produced one of the most recognizable theme songs of the early 2000s. Now, here's the part that gets strange. The network wasn't sure about it. Fox executives heard the demo and had concerns about whether it was too quirky, too offbeat, too indie for a mainstream family sitcom. There were discussions about whether they should go with something more conventional, something that sounded more like what you'd expect from a primetime Fox comedy. Linwood Boomer pushed to keep it. He felt it perfectly captured the anarchic spirit of the show, the sense that this family lived outside the normal rules, that nothing about their life was polished or presentable. And he was right. Boss of Me is completely inseparable from the show at this point. You hear those opening notes, and you are instantly back in that house. The song also ended up winning a Grammy in 2002 for Best Song, written for a motion picture, television, or other visual media, which is genuinely impressive for something knocked out in a single Tuesday afternoon, or whatever day it was. They Might Be Giants has never been entirely specific about the timeline, and honestly, I respect that. Fact 4. Frankie Muniz was almost replaced after the pilot. The show is called Malcolm in the Middle. Malcolm is the entire premise. And after the pilot was filmed, Fox executives were not certain they had the right kid playing him. Frankie Muniz was 12 years old when he shot the pilot. He'd done some work before, a few guest spots, some stage work. He wasn't a complete unknown, but he also wasn't a proven commodity, and Fox, being Fox, started having second thoughts. The specific concern was whether Muniz could carry the show. Malcolm breaks the fourth wall constantly. He addresses the audience directly. He narrates. He reacts. It requires a kid who is simultaneously performing a scene and commenting on it, which is a genuinely difficult technical acting challenge that a lot of adults can't pull off, let alone a 12-year-old from New Jersey. There were internal conversations about recasting, not loud conversations, not public ones, but they happened. People at the network were asking whether they needed to bring in someone with more experience, someone with a longer resume, someone who had already proven they could anchor a half-hour comedy. Boomer refused to budge. He had built the show around a specific quality he saw in Muniz, a kind of natural relatability, an every kid quality that made you root for Malcolm, even when Malcolm was being insufferable, which was often. You can write that quality into a script, but you cannot manufacture it in a performance. Either a kid has it or they don't. Muniz had it. The pilot tested well with audiences. The recasting conversations quietly stopped. And when Malcolm in the Middle premiered on January 9th, 2000, Frankie Muniz was in every frame. The show debuted to 23 million viewers, which remains one of the strongest series premieres in Fox history. So that worked out. Fact 5. Every major network passed on this show. If you have been watching this channel for any length of time, this fact is going to feel very familiar. Because apparently no network other than Fox could identify a good television show in the 1990s. Linwood Boomer took his pitch around town. ABC passed, NBC passed, CBS passed. The reasons varied, but the theme was consistent. Too weird, too dark, too messy. The family wasn't aspirational enough. The kid was too cynical. There was no clear moral lesson at the end of each episode. Networks wanted the Huxtables. They wanted Growing Pains with a few more jokes. They did not want a family where the dad once spent an entire weekend obsessively trying to solve a Rubik's Cube and considered it a personal victory. And look, we've talked about this before on this channel. Fox rejecting conventional wisdom is basically how the network was built. Married with Children, The Simpsons, Malcolm in the Middle. There is a direct line connecting all three of those shows, and it runs straight through Fox's willingness to greenlight things that everyone else thought were too risky or too weird. What's interesting here is that Malcolm in the Middle was not actually that dark on paper. Reading a synopsis of the show, it sounds fairly conventional. Gifted kid, chaotic family, suburban setting. The darkness was in the execution, the tone, the refusal to wrap everything up neatly. And that was exactly what scared the other networks. Fox said yes, and within 2 months of premiering, Malcolm in the Middle was the highest-rated new comedy on television. Fact 6. Malcolm never had a last name. On purpose. Here is a small fact with a surprisingly large meaning behind it. Throughout the entire run of Malcolm in the Middle, 7 seasons, 151 episodes, Malcolm's last name is never revealed. You never find out what it is. The family has no last name. This was not an accident or an oversight. It was a deliberate creative choice made by Linwood Boomer from the very beginning. The reasoning was this: Boomer wanted the family to feel universal. He did not want audiences to locate them in a specific ethnic background or cultural tradition. He wanted every viewer, regardless of where they came from, to be able to look at this family and see something of their own family in it. The chaos, the love, the dysfunction, the noise, all of it. By removing the last name, he removed one of the primary identifiers that audiences use to categorize characters and decide whether or not a family is like them. It's a subtle trick, but it worked. People from incredibly diverse backgrounds claimed Malcolm in the Middle as their show, because Malcolm's family was everyone's family, or at least everyone's worst family dinner. There was one episode, where a last name is very briefly glimpsed on a piece of mail in the background. Eagle-eyed viewers spotted it, and it spread across the internet for years. The last name appeared to be Wilkerson. The show's writers have never officially confirmed this. Boomer has been asked about it in interviews and has consistently smiled and declined to answer, which is honestly the correct move. Fact 7. The kids actually hated each other. At first. You watch the show, and the chemistry between the brothers feels effortless. The bickering, the chaos, the way they'd turn on each other, and then immediately form a united front against whatever new catastrophe Lois was bringing down the hallway. It feels real, because eventually it was real. But in the early days of production, the young cast members were not exactly a harmonious unit. Frankie Muniz, Eric Pear Sullivan, and Justin Burfield were 3 kids thrown together on a set and told to act like brothers. They were different ages, came from different backgrounds, had different working styles, and at various points in the first season were actively not getting along off camera. The specifics are a little murky, because nobody involved has been particularly eager to detail exactly what the tensions were. But multiple crew members from the early seasons have mentioned that the set required active management of the kid dynamics in a way that became less necessary as the show went on. There were squabbles, there were bruised feelings, there was the specific social cruelty that preteens and teenagers are genuinely world-class at inflicting on each other. What changed things was time and shared experience. You cannot spend that many hours together, go through the particular weirdness of being a child actor together, navigate the pressures of a hit television show together without either completely falling apart or genuinely bonding. They chose bonding. By season 3, by most accounts, the cast had become something genuinely close to what they were playing. Not brothers, obviously, but a unit, a team, and it shows in the footage. Fact 8. Hal's underpants scene was completely improvised. In the pilot episode of Malcolm in the Middle, Bryan Cranston's character, Hal, is seen standing in the front yard in nothing but his underwear. It is one of the most memorable images from the show's entire run, and it was not in the script. Cranston improvised it. He decided, apparently without extensive consultation with anyone, that Hal would wander outside in his underwear, and that this would be a perfectly normal thing for this particular man in this particular family. The crew went with it. The shot stayed in. And it became one of the defining visual signatures of the character. Here's what's fascinating about this. The writers watched what Cranston was doing with Hal in those early episodes and started writing to it. They saw his physical instincts, the commitment, the willingness to look completely ridiculous in service of a joke, and they began building storylines specifically designed to showcase it. The episode where Hal becomes obsessed with speed painting, that came from the writers watching Cranston improvise. The roller skating storyline, same origin, the racing, the dancing, the increasingly elaborate physical set pieces that Hal found himself in across 7 seasons. Cranston has talked about this in interviews. He described Hal as a man who had completely abandoned any pretense of dignity within the walls of his own home. And once you understand that as the character's core principle, the underwear makes perfect sense. Why would Hal put pants on? He is in his house. Pants are for the outside world. Hal has left that world behind. Fact 9. The show was a critical darling that never won the big Emmy. Malcolm in the Middle won 7 Emmy Awards over its run. It was nominated for dozens more. It won the Golden Globe for Best Television Series in Comedy or Musical in 2001 and 2002, back-to-back years, which is a genuinely extraordinary achievement. It was, by any reasonable critical measure, one of the best comedies on television during its peak years. And yet, it never won the Emmy for Outstanding Comedy Series. Not once across 7 seasons. You want to know what beat it? Friends, Will and Grace, Everybody Loves Raymond. Shows that were beloved and popular and fine, perfectly fine, good television, but were they better than Malcolm at its peak? I have opinions about this, and I'm choosing to keep them to myself, mostly. The Emmy snub became something of a running joke in Hollywood circles. The show kept getting nominated. The show kept losing. The writing nominations, the acting nominations for Jane Kaczmarek specifically, who was nominated 6 times for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series and never won. Not once, became a symbol of a particular kind of awards bias where innovative and formally adventurous shows kept losing to more traditional formats. Jane Kaczmarek was nominated 6 times. 6. She did not win once. If that doesn't make you at least a little bit angry, then I don't know what to tell you. Fact 10. Jane Kaczmarek. Almost quit twice. Speaking of Jane Kaczmarek, playing Lois was physically and emotionally demanding in a way that went beyond the normal requirements of a network comedy. Lois was almost constantly in a state of maximum intensity, screaming, running, managing, threatening, loving, losing her mind. Episode after episode, season after season, Jane Kaczmarek was operating at a level that left very little room for any other register. And by her own account, there were points in the show's run where she seriously considered walking away. The first time was around season 3. Kaczmarek had come from a theater background. She was a serious trained actress who had done serious dramatic work. And she found herself increasingly frustrated that Lois, for all her power and presence, was being written as reactive rather than active. Lois existed to respond to the chaos around her. She was rarely the originator of a storyline in her own right. She was the wall that everyone else bounced off. Kaczmarek wanted more. She wanted episodes that explored who Lois was outside the context of her family. What had she given up? Who had she been before the kids arrived? The writers heard her. They started developing more Lois-centric storylines in later seasons. Whether it was enough to fully satisfy her is a matter of some debate. The second near departure came later in the run, during the contract renegotiations that plagued the show's later seasons. There were money disputes, credit disputes, the general ugliness that descends on any long-running production when everyone is tired and the ratings are declining and nobody is quite as excited about being there as they used to be. She stayed both times, and the show is immeasurably better for it. Fact 11. The final season was written, knowing it was the last. By season 7, everyone knew. The ratings had been declining steadily since the show's peak. Frankie Muniz' health had become a concern, which we will get to in a moment. The cast was older, the premise had stretched about as far as it could stretch. Fox and the producers sat down and agreed that season 7 would be the end. This is rarer than you might think. Most shows either get canceled without warning or limp on past their natural ending point, because nobody wants to be the one to pull the plug. Malcolm in the Middle got to end on its own terms, with its creative team intact and a full season to construct a proper conclusion. And they used that knowledge. The final season is noticeably more serialized than the earlier ones. There's a sense of building towards something, of paying off relationships and storylines that had been running for years. The show was saying goodbye, and it knew it. The finale centered on Malcolm getting accepted to Harvard and facing a choice about his future. The reveal that Lois had engineered circumstances to make Malcolm's life difficult on purpose, because she believed hardship would make him great, was genuinely divisive. Some fans found it a touching and thematically coherent conclusion. Other fans found it infuriating and a little bit creepy. The internet, which was just becoming the place where television fandoms lived and argued in 2006, had extensive feelings about this. Extensive. Linwood Boomer has defended the ending in subsequent interviews. His position is essentially that Lois always knew who Malcolm was, more clearly than anyone else, and that everything she did came from love, even when it looked like something else entirely. Whether you buy that reading probably depends on how you feel about Lois Wilkerson, or whatever her name is. Fact 12, Frankie Muniz's memory loss and what it cost him. This is the one that genuinely hurts. Frankie Muniz has spoken publicly and openly about the health issues he has experienced in the years since Malcolm in the Middle ended. Beginning in his early 20s, he suffered a series of transient ischemic attacks, which are often described as mini-strokes. He has had at least 9 of them, by his own count. The consequences have been significant. Muniz has described losing large chunks of his memories from the Malcolm years, events he was present for, episodes he filmed, moments that the rest of the world saw and remembered as milestones in his career, are simply gone for him. He has watched footage of himself as a child and felt like he was watching a stranger. Think about that for a moment. You are one of the most famous child actors of your generation. Your face was on every magazine. Your show was watched by tens of millions of people every week. You were a genuine cultural phenomenon. And you can't remember it, not because you were too young, but because your own brain took it from you. Muniz has discussed this with remarkable grace and openness. He has said that it gives him a strange relationship with his own past, that he relies on what other people tell him about who he was. He has also said that in some ways, not carrying the weight of all that memory has given him a kind of freedom. He went on to race cars competitively after the show ended, which is either a completely unexpected career pivot or the most on-brand thing imaginable, depending on your point of view. I genuinely cannot decide. He got married in 2017 and has spoken warmly about the life he has now. But the memory loss is real, it is ongoing, and it is a genuinely strange and melancholy footnote to what should have been the straightforward success story of a kid who made it. Fact 13. The show. Quietly predicted Breaking Bad. Alright, here it is. The one that reframes everything. In 2008, 2 years after Malcolm in the Middle ended, a show called Breaking Bad premiered on AMC. It starred Bryan Cranston as Walter White, a mild-mannered chemistry teacher who transforms into a dangerous drug kingpin. It went on to become one of the most critically acclaimed television dramas ever made. Many people consider it the greatest television series of the modern era. The casting of Cranston as Walter White was considered a massive risk. He was known as Hal from Malcolm in the Middle, a comedic actor, a physical clown. Why would you cast that guy as a menacing drug lord? Here is what Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad, has said directly and on the record. He chose Bryan Cranston specifically because of Malcolm in the Middle, not in spite of it. Gilligan had watched the show and was struck by something in Cranston's performance that other people were missing. Beneath the comedy, beneath the physical slapstick, there was something in Cranston's eyes that suggested a man sitting on top of something much darker, a simmering quality, a control that felt like it could very easily become something else in different circumstances. Gilligan also noted that an actor who could make you laugh that hard and that consistently had a technical command of performance that pure dramatic actors sometimes lack, the ability to modulate, to find the exact right register for any given moment. Malcolm in the Middle was not just Bryan Cranston's day job while he waited for something better to come along. It was, in a very direct and traceable way, the reason Breaking Bad exists in the form that it does. The show that everyone thinks of as the comedic footnote to a greater career was actually the audition tape for that greater career. And Hal did make a brief appearance on Breaking Bad. In one of the most beloved Easter eggs in television history, there's a shot of Walter White standing in a store in his underwear that directly mirrors the iconic Hal image from the Malcolm pilot. Cranston and Gilligan put it there deliberately, a quiet acknowledgement of where all of it started. Fact 14. The creator never made another hit. Linwood Boomer created Malcolm in the Middle. He developed it, fought for it, protected it through 7 seasons, and delivered one of the most distinctive comedies of its era. He was nominated for Emmy Awards. He was celebrated in the industry, and then he basically disappeared. After Malcolm in the Middle ended in 2006, Boomer did not create another successful series. He worked, he was attached to various projects, he had development deals, but nothing broke through. Nothing came close to replicating what he had done. This is not as unusual as it sounds. Television history is full of creators who had one extraordinary run and then spent the rest of their careers trying to find it again. The circumstances that produce a great show are complicated and fragile, and almost impossible to deliberately replicate. You need the right idea and the right cast and the right network at the right moment in the culture, and you need a little luck on top of all of that. Boomer had all of that once. It produced something genuinely special. The fact that lightning didn't strike twice doesn't diminish what he built, but it is a melancholy kind of legacy. Your name is attached to one great thing and then a long silence. Creator of Malcolm in the Middle. That line appears at the beginning of 151 episodes. There are worse things to have on your resume, but you can understand why it might feel like both an achievement and a ceiling at the same time. And on fact 15, the revival that almost happened and might still. In recent years, the Malcolm in the Middle revival conversation has quietly moved from internet wishful thinking to something resembling an actual industry discussion. Bryan Cranston and Frankie Muniz have both addressed it publicly. The cast's general posture has shifted from polite deflection to genuine openness. They'd come back if the concept was right. What most people seem to want is a continuation rather than a reboot. Malcolm is somewhere in his mid-30s now. Presumably Harvard happened. Presumably he became the person Lois always knew he would be. The interesting question is whether that version of Malcolm still has anything worth saying, and whether the family chaos that made the show work translates to a different decade of his life. Fox conversations have apparently happened. Nothing confirmed, nothing greenlit, nothing with a start date attached to it. But the show's second life on streaming, particularly with younger viewers who were in diapers during the original run, has given the property real commercial value again. Networks notice that kind of thing. The creative obstacle is the hard one. What is the story? What does a Malcolm in the Middle revival actually have to say right now? Nobody has fully answered that yet, and Linwood Boomer would need to be the one to answer it. My personal opinion, which you did not ask for and are absolutely getting anyway, is simple. The revival only works if Malcolm is still a mess. That was always the whole point. Being the smartest person in the room does not protect you from anything. A version where Malcolm has it figured out betrays everything the show stood for. He should still be struggling. Lois should still be right about everything and furious about it. Hal should be in his underwear, non-negotiable. Malcolm in the Middle was a bridge. It carried the honest, uncomfortable DNA of Married with Children forward, absorbed everything The Simpsons figured out about form and tone, and handed all of it to Arrested Development, Scrubs, 30 Rock, and everything that followed. And it gave us Bryan Cranston, the guy nobody wanted, who turned Hal into one of the great comedic characters in television history, and used every single thing he learned, doing it to become Walter White. That started with a kid turning to the camera and telling you the truth. Malcolm in the Middle was always doing exactly that. Apparently it's worth coming back to, because we still are.